Hello and welcome to this How to Start 𝘵cie𝗱𝘰𝗁 podcast episode. I'll introduce straight away my co-host 𝘵𝘆𝑬𝘐𝑠. Hello, Josh.
Hello, yeah. How exciting! We're literally like 1 week out from game week.
We are, and we had a little week break last week. I went off to Finland, and I'm full of aura because it's the most popular beer in Finland. Fun fact. So, yeah. And it actually means plough. So literally aura farming.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun fact. And looking very impressed with that fact in the background, we have Nate, aka the FUT accountant. Hello.
Howdy, Ben. It's great to be back. And man, just get 𝘵cie𝗱𝗰𝗀 here. I've never seen so many people just ready for the new game with the way 25 has ended and the way it's been. So we are very excited.
Yeah, and a reminder, because there has been a bit of a break. Maybe you're coming back to the podcast because you weren't around over the summer. We're on video, so Nate is making his video podcast debut, and you can catch that on YouTube, also by the Patreon as well. And making his debut as well is Brammers. Hello.
Hello. Yes, normally a face for radio, but I'm very happy to be here. And I too am excited about 𝘵cie𝗱𝘰𝗁. It's the international break at the moment. The game isn't out, so people are fighting in the streets of Discord and
the Discord.
Yeah, I think we're all very excited for the countdown to end and to actually get in and play it.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited for your beard, which is very impressive.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you.
A reason to look on video. In fact, there's very little chin on show in this video call. Actually, I think everyone has some sort of face covering. Okay, let's get into actually talking about 𝘵cie𝗱𝗰𝗀, and we're going to start from the very start. So at the moment, Josh, we are actually today at time of recording, we're going to get the rating reveal. We think. I'm not sure what form that's going to take this year. I haven't really seen, but as always, the database has been leaked.
Yeah, in terms of the format the database reveal will take, the only official stuff I think we've got from EA at the moment is a badly cropped image of Jude Bellingham to try and remove the Club World Cup logo from his chest, but still left it clearly visible around it. That was quite funny. So, Lord knows in what way it'll be revealed. I think they've shown us the kind of star ratings of each team so far. And Manchester United have maintained a 4.5 star rating, which I think is probably the biggest shock so far. The full database got released like a week and a half ago. We started getting the leaks maybe even a week before that. And then just several websites have now popped up with the full database. There was a period of time where I don't think they had the right play styles. I still think some of them don't have the right play styles. I'm not sure if they've necessarily got the right positional information, all that kind of stuff. But the stats seem to be pretty much where people expect them, which has caused all kinds of, starter squad building and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the official release will be in the next day or so. So it's good to know that 26 has got off on the foot of no leaks. It's good to see that we've really moved on from that.
And Brammers, do you tend to, do anything around the ratings, or do you build squads or anything like that?
I like to have a dig through them and see what's what. I don't do the squad building thing because in the last few years it's sort of become less relevant. I feel like as soon as you get into the game, what you were planning 2 days prior is no longer valid. You pack something that's better and say you go in a different direction, or it just doesn't really pay off for me. So really I'm just floundering at the moment with nothing much to do. That's why I'm here, just filling the hours before the web app.
Yeah, it's worked out well. And Nate, anything from you on the sort of rating stuff? I guess there's not too much more to add, but
yeah, just trying to get familiar with, instead of building a starter squad, just getting familiar with players from certain leagues and nations that, let's say you pack somebody from Galatasaray was the example that I was thinking of from earlier, like that Davinson Sanchez, but who are you going to link to him? Just instead of trying to figure out a starter squad and who you're going to spend your coins on, build your team around, just knowing players that, if you pack a player from this league or nation, you might have a nice link to them and you can start to form some triangles. And that way it's a lot easier to build a team based on, like Brammers said, who you get in those early packs. So,
yeah. God, triangles, that's a throwback to the old chemistry system.
It is, yeah.
As soon as you said that, I started thinking of the Bayern triangle.
Yeah,
Do you remember that? Who was that? That was
Boateng,
yes,
yeah, and who was midfielder? Goretzka, maybe? I don't know.
something like that. But
Yeah, probably. Might have even been Vidal, actually. Yeah. That's a throwback. Right. Well, that's the boring bit done, to be honest. Let's move into what I'm sure, much more looking forward to, which will be the web app release. One thing we always remind people is that you can do two-factor authentication for your EA account a few different ways. And one of those ways is text and also email. And both of those can be delayed if there's like a lot of demand. So using your, what do they call it? Code generating app?
Authentication app.
Authentication, that's the one. That's the most time efficient way. There's no delays and you should be able to get straight in. So that's a heads up.
There's also a way, if you go log on to EA's website and go into your profile and security, you can get 10 codes that you can just put in at any time. Once you've used them once, you can't use them again. But if especially... It's actually not been too bad the last year or so, year or two.
True.
But there was a time where you'd be waiting hours for your authentication code. So if you had the kind of offline versions, that made it a lot quicker as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then in terms of stuff that's going on in FC25, Josh, anything for people to note on that?
Yeah, so we've had what I think will probably be the final pack, pre-season pack in 25 that came as a second evolution one. So the first evolution one expired on Friday. You had to have submitted it by Friday. You have to complete it by this coming Friday. And then we've got a second one, which is This Club Is Yours 3. And that gives you an 83x3 player pack and a lone icon player pick for 5 matches. And I think still we've got the preseason crafting objective. So I think you need to complete 100 of the preseason crafting SBCs, which should be really, really easy to do at this point. And then there's the Club Is Yours 2, which is still available, which is, I think, the nations one where you have to fill your team with different nations. I think you can do it in 10 games, but you have to make sure you kind of got the right mix of players in each team. The Club Is Yours 1 has expired now. That was an 80x10. And then also, of course, completing the season ladder. I think there's still kind of 10 days to go in that. I think you've got until next Thursday to complete the season ladder. And that's an 84x5 pack, which I think is probably the best of the kind of pre-season packs. I saw a bit of confusion, which surprised me because it feels like it's been the same whenever they've done this. We're not going to get these preseason rewards until I think it's the 10th of October. So it's not the case that you'll just log on and they'll be there. And so by that point, you've kind of already had 2-3 weeks on the game. The packs have slightly less value at that point than they would do right at the beginning. But I mean, still nice to get a bit of a head start, I suppose, by playing some of FC25 if you can bring yourself to do that.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess actually we should move on to next week. So next week is going to be the week that we get web app and early access as well. So Brammers, I know as a game critic and consultant, release dates and scheduling is very important to you. So how does launch work for people? I was going to say people who haven't done this before, but actually probably also for people who have, because everyone forgets going into the
I had to look it up. So web app arrives on the Wednesday. If you had web app access already, then you will be able to just jump into it through the usual website. If I remember correctly, it's usually around content time that it goes live. That I think has been the case in past years. I've certainly remember because I was out one evening when it came out, and I was sitting with my wife in a sort of social gathering, and I was refreshing it, trying to get the bloody thing on my phone, and eventually it popped. So definitely can attest to that. And then you'll get the companion app on your phone. I think is the day after that, which doesn't make a huge difference. But let's say that you accidentally get transfer market banned for trading too many bronze cards on the web app on the Wednesday at 1 a.m. Don't know anyone that's happened to, but the companion app counts as a different thing, so that can be useful. And then on the Friday, that's when things really start happening. If you've pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition. I think is it just the Ultimate Edition where you gain access a week early?
And EA Play.
And EA
you get the 10-hour kind of free trial.
There you go. But on the 19th, and I think they've put something out about this where if you're on PC and if you're in New Zealand on Xbox, or if you've changed your Xbox settings to New Zealand, then you can access it from, I believe it's 1 p.m. UK time.
Yeah.
On the Thursday,
That's on the Thursday, yeah. So
so PC's done like a worldwide release all at the same time.
Yeah.
So they'll everyone will have access regardless of where you are. You don't need to do anything special. For Xbox, you can change your location to play early. For PlayStation, you have to have set up an account with New Zealand as your home store, and then have bought the game, I think, in the New Zealand store in order to be able to access it early. So for some people, that's probably not going to be worthwhile.
It's a level of FC degeneracy that is even beyond me. So I will be with the general PlayStation group who get in at, midnight. But I mean, I'm not staying up. I'll just jump on when I wake up and annoy the kids by hogging the television when they'd rather be watching, I don't know, Dog of Wisdom or Italian brain rot videos.
come watch Dad open bronze packs for
an
hour.
They do kind of enjoy it, actually. There's a certain a tradition.
Cheering as you win a gold rare on bid for 600 coins. Yeah,
that's the one. So then nice. everyone who is kind of pre-ordered that or has a EA Play is getting in then, and that's when we're all off to the races. But it's not until a week later that the mass standard edition hordes descend.
Yep. There you go. So that is the schedule to expect. And I guess on that, we can, unless we've missed anything, we can move on to talking about what will be going on the web app with Nate. I guess, the amount of web app time has reduced over the years, which there's a lot of nostalgia for me around that, even as someone who's not, big trader, but it was a lot of fun. So now we only have 2 days really to do that. And yeah, it'd be interesting to know what you think people might want to get up to on there.
Yeah, it is a lot shorter than it used to be, for sure. Starting off the web app, there's been a lot of leaks and rumors about this year, instead of picking a nation, you pick a league, like a league combination for your starter squad that it'll build you at the very beginning. Of course, in years past, it was always like Germany, Argentina, Brazil. And now it's kind of like, well, you're going to take Prem, La Liga. It's probably going to be two of the popular ones. And then, of course, you move into like the loans, not the loans, like the badges and the kits and stuff, which I heard that those are untradeable this year as well. And I think these leaks are coming from the beta. So, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It could
I think
change.
like if that is true that it was that way on the beta, then it feels quite likely that will be the case for the real game, because that's a change versus previous years. So,
right,
why would that be the case if that wasn't the case? Which is a shame, because it was a decent little coin injection from quick selling the gold.
That's already got me angry. The game hasn't even come out yet.
And that's an interesting point. And I guess if it is picking league, then potentially, I don't know, Josh, it depends on SBCs, right? Like that could be kind of advantageous to pick a league where there's lots of different nations like the Premier League, or a league where there's lots of similar nations like La Liga, or I guess the women's top league as well in Spain.
Yeah, I think it depends when you start, actually, because usually web app release comes when we get the first team of the week, and there have been times in the past where if you chose the nation of a non-rare gold that had got a team of the week, you would get the team of the week in your starter squad, or you had the chance of doing that. So depending on when you start, if there is a league that has a non-rare gold that's got an inform, might be worth picking them, because I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I don't actually think SBC-wise it makes that much difference anymore either. In the past, it used to be that you needed like a German DM and an English striker to complete one of the kind of foundation SBCs, but they changed that up for 25, actually. So I think I wouldn't overthink it. If you are somebody that's going to want to play in the Prem, or you're going to want to play in the Liga, then choose those leagues, obviously. I think it should make the squad building a little easier to complete the early objectives for like a high chemistry squad and kind of switching formations and stuff, because you'll have players from the same league rather than just the same nation, which could be a little bit janky at times. So yeah, it's an interesting change. I'll be interested to see if they have made kits and badges untradeable, because that feels like it's really the first coin injection into the game when you start the web app, because we used to have loads of tradable welcome back packs, and then they went to untradeable, and then they I don't know. So also, as long as we get tradable welcome backpacks, we'll be able to get started.
I was going to say, they also didn't they make it so you couldn't get into the objectives menu from the web app during the web app period?
That's something that's been on and off all year. Is getting into objectives, and I wonder if that's like a server management thing, because usually if you go in just after 6 o'clock, you can't go into objectives on the web app, but if you go in at 10 in the morning, you can go into objectives. It's something that's happened throughout the whole year, so that might be an issue as well.
I noticed they've turned it off now for 25. I don't think you can get in at all on the web app to objectives, so
that's interesting. I mean, so you're saying set an alarm for 4 a.m. in the morning when nobody's on, go and claim your objective coins.
Move to New Zealand, get up at 4 a.m.
I mean, if you're in New Zealand,
they probably, for 3 days,
probably are getting up at 4 a.m., right? So, yeah, interesting. Okay. So it sounds like it's going to be a slightly different launch from that kind of perspective then, with the picking the league and that sort of thing. I think maybe we'll actually take a little break here, and then we'll be back to find out from Nate how to make 1 million coins on the web app within 2 days. See you in just a second. Hello, and in this break, a quick reminder that the pod is made possible by supporters. The pod didn't used to be weekly. Yes, FUT Weekly wasn't actually weekly for a time. And then someone suggested setting up the Patreon. And since then, the pod has been weekly. And in fact, it's been twice weekly, because there is that supporter episode every single week. So if you'd like to catch that episode and keep the podcast going, it's just £3 a month to do so, and you get loads in return. And there are perks higher than that, including access to the Discord too. So if you're interested and would like to support the podcast, then head over and search Support FUT Weekly. Go to Patreon, and it's very easy to sign up. If you are a supporter keeping the podcast going, then a huge thank you for doing so. And if you do consider supporting, a huge thank you too. Right, let's jump back into the pod. Hello and welcome back after the break. Right, we're going to talk about what to do on the web app. Before that, let's go to you, Josh. I think you just double checked what you actually get when you, or at least you got last cycle when you launched the web app for the first time.
Yeah, considering our 𝘵FC25 review included a whole load of things from 𝘵C24, I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to say anything that was wrong, but we did get tradable welcome packs in 𝘵C25. It was a Silver Players pack, I think, was one of them, and then the 75 to 83 by 2s. And we also got some untradeable, I think, gold packs as well. So even if the kits and badges are untradeable, we should get some tradable players to be able to generate our initial coins with.
Nice. Sounds good. So I guess that leads us on to saying, how do I, Nate, turn that into 1 million coins in 2 days?
Well, the problem is, if you get tradable players, you feel like you need to put them in your club because you want to do the SBCs for the starter packs. But those are untradeable, or the rewards are now, as they've been in the past few years. They used to be, did I say untradeable or tradable? They are untradeable. They used to be tradable. But I think with some of those welcome backpacks that could give you tradable players, quick selling them is probably where you have to start. Because if you're not able to quick sell a badge or a kit this time around, you got to have at least something to get yourself even to 1,000 coins. So I think quick selling some of those cards that we get from the welcome backpacks would have to be your starting point. You'll get them back untradeable anyways later. And then from there, that's the web app grind that just picks up. Everybody's going to start to do the intro SBC where you have to, put in some bronze cards from certain positions. Most of those you'll already have in your club, but some people are going to go out and buy those. So if you go and look at that SBC and then the other intros SBCs after that, and just kind of figure out what bronze players and silver players and maybe even some golds that people will buy, because that's really the only thing you can do on the game is either trade on the market where there's literally slim to none cards listed because how many people are on the game, or do SBCs, people are going to go for the SBCs in the pack. So in previous years, trading with some of those bronze cards is kind of the play. Like Josh mentioned, like German CDMs or English strikers, just positions that are needed for those starter SBCs and what the requirements say. Sure, there'll be multiple ways to do the SBC, but you can easily just go on the market and start filtering through like bronze, rare or non-rare, like left wings and strikers, and just kind of filter through the nations and the leagues, probably starting with like Prem and La Liga and stuff like that. And you'll find that maybe a bronze is selling for, 300, 400 coins. That's enough. You can go and try to win that card on bid for 200. You can open bronze packs. That's another thing that people did. I think last year a good bit was people were just ripping bronze packs for the managers, not necessarily to sell the managers right away, but to hold on to them for when they would go up, when people got on the game, and then selling the bronze cards that they were packing from that people were buying for those first SBCs.
Yeah, I remember bronze managers in the first few weeks went from like 300 coins to like 5,000 or something like that. Especially if there's an SBC for a player of a nation where there's only a bronze manager or something like that, or silver manager, it can be pretty good. Right. Well, is there anything that people want to add in terms of web app shenanigans, Josh or Brammers? If there's anything Nate wants to add as well.
I think the only thing I would say is like, don't worry about it too much. You'll see a lot of people posting on Twitter and, posting videos about having like thousands of coins and like this insane team that you haven't even got anywhere close to. But the reality is that after about 6 hours on the actual game on the console, none of it really matters that much. And because that gap is now so short between web app release and early access, the actual difference it makes, whether you spend loads of time on the web app or very little, it doesn't really matter now. Like, it can give you a little leg up. It can help you do some things. Like, one of the things I'd say on the web app is it's really important if you're someone who hasn't got the Ultimate Edition and you just want to do the free trial, not free trial, you do have to pay for EA Play, but it's a lot cheaper than buying the Ultimate Edition. So if you want to do those 10 hours, don't be doing SBCs or menu stuff that you can do on the web app whilst you're using up those 10 hours on the console. So I think that's who it's most important for. I think for most of us, it's just that excitement of like ripping new packs, the new card design, like all of that kind of stuff. That's more, I think, where the fun comes from it. But I don't think your year will be made or broken by how much time you spent on the web app.
I tell you what, one of the highlights of one of the cycles for me one time was when I got an inform tradable like pretty much straight away, and then quick sold him for 10k. You get the 10k, then you have basically more coins than anyone else for that period, and you can just like win stuff on bid that shouldn't be that cheap, and then you just quick sell recover them like in a week's time once you have the coins and sell them for even more than 10k. So it's, sometimes it can be good, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's not really something to get too concerned about. Anything
I would also say as well, last year it felt like the gold rare prices kind of crashed really hard once we got full. But people tend to expect that the gold rare prices will go up because people will suddenly start gaining coins. But most of the cards people invested in actually went down because they were kind of actually beneath where most people ended up being able to build teams at. I'm not sure that will happen quite as quickly this year because of the split in the pre-order FC points. We'll only get 2,000 at the beginning of the game. I also wonder if people will hold on to those points a bit more this year, if they can, for like the second season pass. Obviously, anyone who's got the Ultimate Edition will have the first season pass already paid for, but holding on to them for the second season pass or for evolutions. So maybe this year, actually, there will be a bit of a bigger rise in those kind of lower rated golds. I also wonder how much of an effect Gauntlet and tournaments may have on that as well, because you are going to need to kind of have a deeper club this year than you have done in the past. And so maybe some of those kind of OP starter squads actually will get used this year. They won't just be built in the web app and then sold as people realize they've got much better teams.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions actually based on what you've just said there. Before that, I don't know whether Brammers you have said anything yet on the web app. So if you want to add anything, feel free. But if not, I feel like we've talked about it quite a bit. So
no, I don't have a lot to add. Just to second Josh's point that it doesn't really matter. You will probably make more coins in the first 20 minutes on the actual game than you will in the 2 days you've spent on the web app. Just enjoy it. It's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of nice to see what you can build in that time. I always think, even if you, as you say, don't end up really using it. And yeah, I guess it might be worth familiarizing yourself with any of the kind of new elements that are visible within the web app. Like, I don't know if there's stuff around. There might be some information about like Gauntlet or these things that are coming within that. Sometimes it depends on what they add into the web app, but there could be some stuff there. We actually should find out a bit more information when we get that kind of FUT launch update we get sometimes, which is like a pitch note, which explains what's happening, especially in the early stages of the game, and that may be even more detailed than previously, considering their approach to this cycle. So we'll see if there's anything to kind of note on that, and then I'm sure we'll chat about it on the podcast when it comes. And then the things that you mentioned, Josh, that I think are worth covering are, I guess, FC points. First of all, you're going to get this 6K if you got the Ultimate Edition, and you get 2,000 FC points. And then if they said it's like a month later that you get another 2K, and then a month later you get the other 2K?
Yeah, they said they spread it out over 2 months. I'm not sure they've specified the exact date, but I think the expectation is it will be you get 2,000 when you start, you'll get 2,000 either a month later or on full release. I think I saw some people rumor that it was full release, but I think it'll be a month later, and then the final 2,000 a month after that.
And I guess that is interesting for quite a few reasons, and one of the big reasons why it's interesting is because of the premium pass. If you order the Ultimate Edition, you'll get the first premium pass free as part of that, but if you're, I guess, Nate, a road to glory player, someone who's not spending FC points, then holding on to that, those other bundles of FC points, so 5,000, I guess, for future season passes is probably one of the smartest coin value uses of those, potentially. Although, on the other hand, getting the points in early can be beneficial. So it's something people have asked, and actually, I think it was Cam Prime who asked about this.
No, I think that's a great way to think of it. Like, come to the end of October and we get another installment of 2,000 FC points, like, if half of that goes to the season pass and you don't have to spend 300, 400, 500K, whatever it is, like that's pretty big at that time of the year where coins are super important. You're still building your squad, and you'd maybe rather spend those coins on, trading, buying a player for your team. You have those points there from the pre-order that just get the season pass in a premium way for you. So I think that's probably going to be the best place to use the points later on. But maybe some will want to save straight away. If you're like really focused on Evos, you could save those initial points for paid Evos. Not that we'd have a ton right off the bat, but 50, 75,000 coin Evos, what would that be, like 750 FC points maybe? Well, actually that's too much. Never mind. Like 300, 200 FC points. So you could do a lot of Evos with the pre-order points too.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I guess there's almost an argument maybe to, I guess because it's spread out, you defer your decision anyway, right? So the first 2,000, you'll have all of those because you won't spend 1,000 on the premium pass.
Right.
I guess you will then get another 2,000, not quite when the new pass has come out yet, right? Because we're assuming that will come out a bit later than a month. So you may want to save 1,000 of those 2,000. It's about 1,000 a pass until that next pass comes out, so you can buy it straight away. But then you'll have 1,000 to play with, to potentially spend on Evos. Seems quite sensible. And then I guess the question is what to do with that initial 2,000 FC points. Brammers, I don't know what approach you're taking this cycle in terms of
spend it.
Whether you spend it, you think you'll just go
get
for
it gone
straight away,
make it rain.
You're just gonna rip some gold packs.
No, in all seriousness, the first 2,000 I will definitely just be opening random stuff in the store, tradable things, whatever they are, the 7.5k packs. I don't know, is it 13 you can get from the 2,000? I think I saw on one of Nate's videos, you see.
Mm.
But I'll just be doing that with the first lot, and then I'll play it by ear with the other amounts later on. Like if I've got tons and tons of coins in the club by then happy days. I'll probably just buy some more packs, knowing that I'll be able to afford season passes, which will be the priority. But if I don't, then maybe I'll save them for that. But certainly straight away, the priority will just be get some coins into the club, get some players on the pitch, get some materials for trading, and get up and running. Which, if I'm sitting there with an extra 1,000 points I'm saving for some mythical rainy day evolution in 2 weeks' time, that's not me.
That's the thing. If that mythical evolution comes in 4 weeks' time, then you'll have more points to spend anyway.
Well, exactly.
So, yeah, I guess the only thing is, Josh, if you're being truly, I don't know, maybe there is an argument to save the points for future passes. If you are truly, if you're not spending any points, then even in a few months' time, saving 500k by spending 1,000 points on a season pass might even be worth it. Or do you think even if you're not trading, you should just get those points, as many of them as possible, into packs for that first 2,000 installment?
With the way that they're releasing the points, it would seem to me that you've got essentially 5 free season passes and then 2,000 points to spend. Like, that would be the way I would look at it, because if you think about 5 seasons in, you're looking at kind of February by the time you're then needing to get the next season pass. So for me, I wouldn't be saving those initial 2,000 for a season pass, because you'll have the 2,000 by the time the next one's here. Unless they massively shorten the length of the season pass, I don't really see them doing that. I think they've got a pretty good flow with what they have right now. But my feeling would be that by the time February comes around, you should have gained enough coins from getting 5 free season passes that you can just pay for the rest of them for the rest of the cycle at that point. If you really want to save up the kind of 2,000 and make it 7 season passes worth of free entries, then you can do that as well. But I'm not sure that's maybe the most efficient. So that first 2,000, I would either be saving them for evolutions or try and generate some coins. It's interesting, but I think there's been such a rise in the kind of untradable only or first owner kind of club management styles in the last few years that actually the kind of gaining coins really quickly became less important for at least a portion of the player base. But I wonder this year, with the changes that they've made, with the depth of club you're going to need to have, actually having the coins to buy a much better striker for your League One squad, for example, or Liga squad, maybe that's actually going to be important this year. So you are going to want to have that bank of coins that you can fall back on. It always feels easier to build those coins up right at the beginning of the cycle if you are a little more liquid in terms of having coins in your account and moving in and out of players fairly quickly. I would say the way I'm going to use them is the final 4,000 is going to be for season passes down the road, or potentially for kind of those 500,000 coin evolutions if we get those. But the first 2,000 will probably be going on packs.
Yeah, another reason that I like to get coins in the club straight away is that it feels like that's one of the periods where there are the most bankable ways of making coins, the most reliable ways in the cycle, because we know that the market rises when the full game launches. And, if you buy, if you've got enough coins to buy a 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 or something that's like a mid-range card that everyone's going to want, that's going to go up. So you can reliably increase your coin total through easy trading, whereas at other times of the cycle, it's a little harder.
That's a fair point. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I've been thinking about is do I actually just go full 2,000 FC points on players, or do I need to keep a little bit back just in case there's an Evo that I want to do where that's going to be better value? Because I think that's the question, is how do they price those Evos early on? Because in some situations we saw the cost of an Evo being much more reasonable through FC points than coins. And if that is the case in the early stages, then I might want to be spending some of those points on that, just because that will make me more coins if I want to do the Evo, obviously. Because if you don't, then it's pointless. I think that's an interesting point.
But yeah, I think it depends on the repeatable Evos. Because if if that's more the route they go down and we get more repeatable evos than we do kind of classic evolutions, then maybe the price of those will reflect that, in that they won't be as big a boost, and so might be a little bit cheaper. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think just if people want a really simple, way of thinking about it, and which I think is relatively, what's the word? Like, it's likely to be the best way to go, is what everyone else has been saying, which is basically 2,000 FC points, put that into tradable packs, get coins into the club, and then use the other 4,000 on passes, or those big evos that don't make sense to spend coins on, probably. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. Anything else to add on that, Nate? If not, I was thinking of asking you about sort of the trajectory of the market kind of in the early stages, that first sort of week or so.
Yeah, having less points right away is going to be interesting. Hopefully make things go a little slower. Last year with 4,600 and just the rewards that we were starting to get to, because of course last year, like the champs and the rivals, all the rewards got a big buff. And there was a lot of coins that were given out. After the first week or two, I was like remembering the price of 𝘵𝘃𝗍𝘬𝘬𝘦. She was like 500k from day 3, because people had the FC points. The prices of some of those cards that people thought were gonna rise, like they were up for the first weekend, they stayed high for the first week, and then into October for the first weekend league, they just all tanked because there were so many coins and rewards out there that people were like not even prioritizing that card. They were going for icons and some heroes and informs and stuff like that. Like last year was the year, I'll always remember this, Steven Gerrard's base card in late October, early November was 700,000 coins, when in every other year before this, he'd never been over 400, just because there were so many coins. And that, since there were a lot of coins from the start, it ended up kind of crashing the market early on too. This year, hopefully, is a lot slower. Sure, we only have 2,000 FC points, but another thing to consider with the premium passes, we've got tradable packs in there too. Not that that'll give us the coins right away. That'll be, of course, as we progress. But yeah, hopefully it just creates a market that does appreciate more. Sure, your starter players like 79 and 80 rateds, they're going to be exciting right away, and people are going to build teams with those, and then they're going to fall off after a week because you'll be able to upgrade to an 83 or 84, 85 soon after that. But hopefully those 83 and above players that are kind of mid-tier, more meta players that you might keep for a couple weeks, maintain their value better than they did last year because of the way we're starting off with less FC points and then prorated throughout the rest of the cycle.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think final thing I wanted to ask for now, then we'll take a break and come back with a little bit more, is 𝘬𝘅𝘬𝘬𝘦 asks, there's always early access SBCs. What factors into making the SBCs worth doing? Josh, I mean, if there's an SBC, you'll complete it right anyway, so I don't know.
I mean, if it's there, then why not, right? No, I think it's got to be, there's got to be some like cost proposition, right? If you're having to spend coins to complete an SBC early in the game cycle, the actual kind of cost of that feels much higher because coins are valuable really early in the cycle. So if you have the untradables and you like the player, that's great, but it's very rare that happens. And so actually for me, I tend to try and avoid as many of those early SBCs as possible. If I have the, like, especially if I've got the duplicates to do it, I'm going to do it. But, I think we had a lot of like squad foundation cards at the beginning of 25. I'm thinking of like Danjuma and like Fran Navarro. Maybe one of those was World Tour, actually. Like Alex Garcia. And those cards were good and they got into your team, but they weren't there for very long. And, maybe that 84 rated squad or 85 rated squad would have been a little more useful somewhere else. So I think it can depend. I don't think we'll see big SBCs early, is something I will say. Like, they've said pretty explicitly on the website this year that we're not going to get any player of the months in FC 26 for the first month. So for like August, essentially. And that's a pretty big kind of about turn, I think, from last year. And I think is maybe a push in the direction of slowing the power curve down because, say Mbappe wins Player of the Month in La Liga, or Dembele wins Player of the Month in Liga, then you have access to some of the best players on the game without necessarily needing to just have coins. You can do it through packs and getting your untradables. So yeah, I kind of like that. Maybe that will mean we'll get fewer SBCs. Maybe they'll link the SBCs more into tournaments and gauntlets. I'm really leaning heavily on tournaments and gauntlets, aren't I? A lot here. I'm really hoping they're good. But, I also think there's an argument to be made that they could release kind of similar SBCs to what we got last year with those Squad Foundations cards. And actually, they're way more worthwhile doing because they build your club out, because they give you multiple different squad building capabilities. And because of the way that they've said they're going to link objectives through different game modes and tournaments and competitions, maybe just kind of being able to have elite cards to pull on from different leagues is going to be important early on.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. I was actually thinking, funny enough, when I was reading this question, not about player SBCs, but about just general SBCs for upgrades and upgrade SBCs and things like that. Generally, I guess that you want to just complete those things if you have untradables, because they just cycle things through and you might pack something good, right?
Yeah, with untradables for sure. Like that first day of the web app, there may not be any content, but I think always the second day there's like a little pack SBC that comes out. I remember it at FC24, the second day when there was a SBC that came out, and I was buying like 82 rated left back Goossens because he went from like 800 coins to 1500 coins as people were trying to do that SBC for a pack that was like it might have been a 7.5k pack. So I think in the very beginning stages of the web app, like day 1, day 2, make sure you're using untradables only for that are in your club. And if it's not that great of a pack, don't spend too many of your coins on it. I think that's a place where people could get caught up wanting to do the first SBC pack, but end up spending too many coins on it for probably an untradable return. So
marquee matchups always worth doing. The first few marquee matchups, like especially if you can do those with untradables, because then you were literally just turning untradables into like actual coins at that point. So and it's unlikely that you would complete the first 2 marquee matchups and not get a card that's worth a decent chunk of coins. I'm not talking like hundreds of thousands, but just like that 10, 20k that can really help you on your way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we'll take a break on that, and after that we'll maybe take a look at something that people who've been watching the video are going to be very curious about, which is Josh's shirt, right after this break. Hello and welcome back after the break. Now, the biggest question that, as I said, everyone will have watching this podcast is, Josh, why are you wearing an Arsenal shirt?
Felt like it, really. It's just one of those things, isn't it? You got it in the cupboard. I've been told I've got an agenda against Arsenal. You got to prove the haters wrong at some point.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, like, Nate is wearing a Mexico shirt, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I've gone away for a week, and suddenly it's all about wearing your rivals' shirts. Quite something. But yeah, did you lose a forfeit, Josh? Surely.
I can neither confirm or deny. Otherwise, the forfeit may be forfeit if I say that it's a forfeit. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, maybe at some point that'll be revealed once your NDA expired.
Or is it borrowed?
No, I actually won this shirt. I went to a PES competition a long time. I say a long time ago. It's like 8 years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, and it was at the Emirates. And so I got to the final, and I conceded 2 of the worst goals I've ever conceded in any football game ever. And I'd got to the final with like a goal difference of like plus 45 or something insane. Like it was, I don't know what happened. I was like lightning on the sticks that day. And I missed out on a VIP Emirates box experience. Nacho Monreal was there and gave me a signed pair of his boots as like a kind of contingency prize, and I got this shirt. So yeah,
does it have a player on the back or?
No. It's just I think it was a training top. They were clearly had surplus in the store, and they were just like, "Go on, give him that."
Well, I mean, I was going to say it suits you, but you probably don't want to hear that. So,
but it fits all right,
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll move swiftly on to talking a little bit more about 𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗏. And actually, I think the big topic of conversation around 𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗏 amongst the committed players who've been keeping an eye on what EA have been saying and catching our podcast, actually. And if you haven't got our podcast with 𝗵𝗽, the FUT economist, who, as people may know, works at EA on content, and also with Rich Walls, it's an interesting episode, although I say so myself, where we talk a lot about what their plans are for 𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗏, and it's very open, and I think it is well worth catching if you're coming back to the game. But essentially, one of the things that has been said is that they're going to be slowing down the power curve, essentially, and we've alluded to it a few times, but I think it's interesting to see the community response to this, and also interesting to think about what EA might do. But Nate, I know you put out a video actually on that thing about Player of the Months not coming.
Yeah.
Well, at least not coming initially, they are coming, just to be clear. And there was really mixed kind of feedback on that. I guess some people being like, oh, this is really good because it's slowing the power curve. We're not going to see these crazy players in people's teams. And other people being like, this is dead because we want content. So I think that's going to be something presumably we have to contend with quite a bit at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be one of the toughest parts probably of the first month or so of the game, is realizing that maybe a day that seems slow or the power curve not increasing a whole lot right away in terms of the card that's getting released in SBCs or the Evo that they put out isn't like a game-breaking, game-changing Evo. Like, just being okay with that, I think. And hopefully that's where the tournaments and the gauntlets come in, especially for Josh, because he's excited for those. We all are. Just giving us different ways to play the game instead of focusing on just building our main squad to go and play champs, rivals, and all that, and squad battles and the early game grind. If we have those tournaments and those gauntlets to just not divert our attention, but just to have a different outlet of fun, I think that will make a lot of difference. But I do believe we just need to remember that a slower power curve might mean less WoW content and big upgrades and changes, at least to the start of the game. And maybe in different periods later on too, but overall it should create a better experience in theory than what we had this last year, where it was like, just move so quick.
Yeah. And actually, I was going to move on to you, Brammers, because we tried to get you in for our episode reacting to our interview with the EA producers, but I think you're in Butlins or something, so we couldn't. I feel like many times I ask you if you're available and you're in Butlins.
No.
It's like you don't work there, right? You don't moonlight in Butlins.
He's a red coat, yeah.
Actually, do we need to explain that for the North American audience?
I have no idea what that
is. I was gonna say.
I don't know how best to describe Butlins. It's a little holiday resort where you can they've got fairground rides and shows you can go to and all sorts of stuff, and it's all kind of all inclusive. And anyway, I was the cliche. I was actually at Butlins, but it was the summer holiday, so it was difficult to when you're trying to juggle kids and a job. It is quite difficult to also carve out 2 hours for a podcast. So apologies. I did watch the sort of end of cycle stuff and the chats you had with Jamie and Rich, and I watched Nate's as well. I really enjoyed Nate's stream with Jamie. I thought that was great fun. As well, worth going and checking out if you haven't seen that one as well. Lots of interesting stuff came out of those conversations, and I like the idea of them slowing down the power curve, providing, as you guys have said, they also create more things for us to do at whatever level the power curve is presently at. So if we're going to have an extended period of teams being sort of 82 and 83 rated generally, and not too many promo cards that punch up that high above that, as long as there's more opportunities to use those cards through things like Josh's favorite tournaments and gauntlets and stuff, then I'm all for it. But in the past, I think we've seen sometimes EA has struggled a little bit when they're introducing a new paradigm for particular modes and that. So it may take them a little while to calibrate and get a sense of how they want to do things. That's where I think it's going to be really interesting to see how their newfound interest in having an active conversation with the community plays out. I think when things go wrong or when community sentiment shifts negative, are they still going to be all 𝗵𝗍𝗍𝘏, jump on the podcast, do live streams, chat to everyone on Twitter, or are they going to clam up again? So, yeah, interesting times ahead on that front.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing because obviously, they're going to need bandwidth to fight fires, and I mean, not necessarily fires, but like if they're having to adapt features versus what they'd planned, because actually engagement is different. So that's obviously like kind of going to take up bandwidth to do that. And then they're having to also think about communicating to the audience about that. But I guess the flip side is if they're able to be quite honest about it, then actually they shouldn't need to put too much time into communicating, because they can just say, well, actually we found people didn't really engage with this and people weren't playing it. We found, if they can use a bit of data as well, I think people will be appreciative of a small amount of information. But
ongoing conversation with this will be really great. I'd love to see a pitch notes about their communication plan for FC26 and how that differs, given that that's been a key spoke of their marketing campaign, is that they're going to have a better conversation. Because I like the pitch that they've had for FC26, but I am concerned, like, what happens if they do another 25k hero pack or 𝘵esse gate? What does it look like in those circumstances? We just don't know until things like that happen. In the past, I think one example of this is quite interesting is if you remember so there are two things, weren't there? There was the Division Rivals points thing last year that everyone got upset about. And I still remember 𝘬𝘵𝘽𝑚's video of him in his kitchen with like a flow chart of how much time he was having to spend grinding rivals. And then there was champs qualification, where when they first introduced it and you needed to win, like, I can't even remember what it was, like 6 out of 10 matches or something crazy. Something that was certainly beyond me, because I remember moaning about it a lot. Those things got corrected, but it took probably until like the next season of content or a couple of promos or whatever, and we heard nothing in the interim. That's the point where you want to be hearing stuff, is in that interim, to say, yeah, we hear you, we're thinking about it, we may do something, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Even if they then come around and say, actually, we're not going to do something, having had that little nudge is important. So that's where I think they can be good this year, and especially if the flattening of the power curve creates these lulls that we're not used to, or if things don't work out the way that they expected around some of these new modes, that's when we want to hear from them. And that's where I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they act this year.
I don't think we'll necessarily get pitch notes on like how often they'll communicate with us, because I think that I really feel like it's a bit of a suck it and see kind of thing. I think they're going to do, they've done some of these podcasts. I think it's the first conversation between an accountant and an economist that's been called really interesting. No offense, Nate. But I think that kind of, I think that was like a testing the waters. I know that, from our perspective, we want that open dialogue. It is good for the community to hear the people working on the game talking about it. There was quite a lot of softball questions from everyone who interviewed them, I think it's fair to say. And I think that's natural. I would like it if they felt comfortable enough to answer some more difficult questions, to talk about leaks, for example, to talk about mistakes, like real mistakes, rather than just we got the power curve slightly wrong in 25. Like, yeah, but let's go back to 𝘵esse when you gave him out like to 0.7% of the player base. Like, those kinds of mistakes, they aren't great for them. I get that, but I think, as you say, communication about it, owning it, like coming out and explaining how did it happen. These are the mechanisms by which these things happen. Yeah. That kind of communication, I think, would be really welcome by the player base. I think with all of these things, it always has to go up against, but the shareholders, like what is good for them as well. And I think we've said it a few times. I hope that last year kind of showed that a happy player base will mean happy shareholders in the long run. Mm-hmm. And that, if people are enjoying playing the game and are logging on and are spending money, everything will work out okay. If you kind of ignore people, if you ignore the player base and don't act quickly enough, it can have really quite dire consequences.
Yeah. And actually, just bring us back around to the power curve topic. What are you thinking around that, Josh? Is kind of how you imagine it going, and also, I guess we've kind of covered it, and I think these guys are right in terms of saying, well, actually, we don't need cutting edge content all the time in terms of players, essentially, if we have plenty of other things to do around the game. And actually, I think everyone pretty much agrees that content was often carrying the day-to-day of the game, and actually, the gameplay experience should be more compelling, and that's where your tournaments in Gauntlet come in.
Yeah. So there's two sides to it. From looking at the leaked database, it does seem like they've been a little less kind with stats. There's been a lot of like rating increases without that much happening with stats, and so I think that's a way of going, we're still giving you high rated cards, but actually leaving themselves more space within the power curve, which I think has always been a problem. I'm still of the opinion that the highest rated card at the beginning of the game should be 80 rated, and that just gives you so much more room to move at that point. I think Nate is right. We're going to have to be patient with it. We can't be there on, like, I think even when we get promos on the Friday, I don't think the promo squads are going to be that, like, mind-blowingly good. There might be a good player in there with a good version, but I really can't see these massive upgrades with insane stats. I just don't think we'll see it, at least not early on. And we have to be okay with that. But we will only be okay with that as a player base if building a deep squad with lots of different options is worthwhile. So it has to go hand in hand with the other content. And so that's why I'm hanging so much hope. I mean, I did this last year with Rush and look how that played out. But that's why I'm hanging so much hope on tournaments and gauntlets. There's a bit of nostalgia in there. I love daily knockout tournaments. I like the idea of a much more open matchmaking system because I'm like a above average player. Like, that is going to benefit me. I'm well aware of that. But I do just think that I think it's the right step. I think starting off slowly and leaving yourself room to accelerate is the right way to manage the power curve, because they went to 100 incredibly quickly last year. And it's killed the last kind of 6 months of the game cycle, really. So yeah, we have to be patient with it. We can't ask for slower power curves and wanting that kind of stuff, and then be frustrated when there's nothing to do or no content. Well, actually, we can be frustrated if there's nothing to do. We can't be frustrated if there's no content and no huge upgrades.
And when you say no,
I think those two things.
And when you say no content, to be clear, there will be content. They're not going to.
Yes.
I think the volume of content will be exactly the same. It's just how cutting edge that content is will be presumably the difference.
Something that'll be quite interesting, maybe a good indicator of power curve things, will be what the player awards are in the first premium pass, the first season pass. Because I think last year, if I remember correctly, was it that 𝘵𝘵𝗫 card was the big one from the first season pass? And that was, I think, an 88? Or was it an 80?
I think it was an 88.
Yeah.
So, if we... And they've obviously been inflating the level 40 rewards in the premium passes as they've been doing premium passes for the first time. So, where do they go with it? If we look at it and it's like a really tasty looking 88 rated card or a 90 rated card or something in the premium pass straight off, then we've probably got questions. But if it's something more modest, then maybe we'll get an indication there.
Yep. I think unless there's anything anyone wants to add at the end here, we are pretty much ready to wrap up. We're going to do a how to start FUT 26 part 2, which will cover the very early stages of getting on the game, amongst a few other things, maybe some personal stuff about what we're planning for our approach for the new game as well, and covering a few questions too. That is this week's supporter episode. So if you are not already a supporter, then you can head over and support. And you can for the audio listeners, Bram's just made a money sign, which is extremely important for keeping the podcast going, because it would not happen without your support. So thank you very much to all those supporters who are supporting. You can just search Support FUT Weekly in Google, and Patreon will come up, and you can head over to Patreon and support. It's just £3 a month to support. And it's also worth noting that on the higher tiers, Gold and Icon, you get access to the supporter Discord, which is an amazing resource because of how quickly the game moves in the early stages. People will be talking about it in there, and you'll also get a ping, or you should get a ping, when the web app drops and things like that, which can be very helpful if you are indeed at a party with your wife and sitting in the corner refreshing constantly. You would not have to do that. So actually, Brammers, you're in the Discord, so you would have got a ping. But anyway, that is all available as part of the Patreon, so head over to Patreon. But yeah, let's say our goodbyes. So thank you very much, first of all, to Nate, the FUT accountant. Talking about keeping up to date, obviously your videos come out every day and there's loads of insight there. I mean, it is I think a lot of the FUT community's sort of newspaper for Ultimate Team, which is really great. So yeah, check that out. But yeah, Nate, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy being on this podcast. Thanks for having me.
Always good. And thank you very much to Brammers as well. Thanks for making your video debut.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great fun. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, you don't have to wait long. We're just about to record it.
Indeed.
And thank you very much to Josh as well. It's been good to have you as always.
Yeah, and all I'll say is it was a foul on 𝘵𝘀𝘀, and we should have absolutely had a penalty.
Nice. And thank you very much, as I said, to all those supporters keeping this podcast going, and of course to all those icon patrons: Dave B, Darren W, Hugh J, Rob W, Brent P, Ralph, Josh R, Brian, Michael B, Adam R, 𝘵𝘀𝗱𝗰𝗀𝘀, Make B, Michael H, Andrew P, Arian B, Rob S, Michael K, Neil P, Jake S, Tom B, Alex M, Alan G, Lee A, Chris G, Mark M, Dom P, Rob P, Roger D, Dan W, Waterman, Also Ran, and 𝘵𝘂𝗍𝘂. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato FUT for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.